In the spring of 1994, the world watched in horror as a small nation in the heart of Africa descended into madness. Rwanda, a land of rolling hills and vibrant culture, became synonymous with the darkest depths of human cruelty. Over a span of just 100 days, an estimated 800,000 people were brutally murdered, victims of a genocide that shocked the conscience of humanity. Their crime? Being born Tutsi, a distinction arbitrarily imposed by colonial powers, twisted over generations, and ultimately used to mark them for extermination. Neighbors turned on neighbors, friends on friends, even families torn apart by the tides of hatred. Machetes, clubs, and guns became the tools of a genocide that spared no one. Men, women, and children were slaughtered indiscriminately, their bodies dumped in rivers, mass graves, and left to rot in the streets. The world, as it so often does, seemed to stand idly by, paralyzed by indifference or perhaps a chilling unwillingness to intervene. The Rwandan genocide was not just a failure of humanity, it was a failure of leadership, a failure of compassion, and a failure of our collective responsibility to protect. This is the story of that genocide, a story that must be told and retold so that we never forget the horrors inflicted upon the Rwandan people. It is a story of hatred and division, but also one of resilience, forgiveness, and the indomitable spirit of a nation determined to rebuild from the ashes. It is a story that forces us to confront the darkest aspects of human nature and to ask ourselves the difficult questions: how could this happen? And how can we prevent it from happening again? To understand the Rwandan genocide, one must first delve into the history of this small African nation, a history inextricably intertwined with the legacy of colonialism. Before the arrival of European powers, Rwanda was a unified kingdom, home to various social groups, including the Hutu, Tutsi, and Twa. These groups, though distinct, lived together in relative harmony, their differences primarily based on occupation and social standing, rather than ethnicity as we understand it today. The arrival of German colonists in the late 19th century marked a turning point in Rwandan history. The Germans, seeking to solidify their control over the region, adopted a policy of divide and rule, exploiting and exacerbating existing social divisions. They elevated the Tutsi minority, perceived as racially superior due to their lighter skin and more European features, to positions of power and privilege. The Hutu majority, on the other hand, were relegated to a position of subservience, subjected to forced labor and discriminatory policies. Belgian rule, which followed in the aftermath of World War I, further entrenched these divisions. The Belgians introduced identity cards that classified Rwandans as either Hutu, Tutsi, or Twa, based on arbitrary criteria such as cattle ownership and physical characteristics. This rigid system of ethnic classification solidified the divide between Hutu and Tutsi, transforming what were once fluid social categories into distinct ethnic groups pitted against one another. The seeds of resentment and mistrust sown by colonial powers took root, setting the stage for the ethnic tensions that would plague Rwanda for decades to come. The road to independence for Rwanda was paved with violence and upheaval. As the Belgian colonial administration began to crumble in the late 1950s, the Hutu majority, long marginalized and oppressed, rose up in rebellion. The 1959 Hutu Revolution led to the overthrow of the Tutsi monarchy and the establishment of an independent Hutu-dominated republic in 1962. However, independence did little to heal the wounds of the past. The new Hutu elite, many of whom had suffered under Tutsi rule, implemented discriminatory policies that targeted the Tutsi minority. Tutsis were excluded from positions of power, denied access to education and employment opportunities, and subjected to violence and persecution. Thousands of Tutsis were forced to flee their homes, seeking refuge in neighboring countries like Burundi, Uganda, and the Democratic Republic of Congo. The exodus of Tutsi refugees had far-reaching consequences. Many of these refugees, particularly those who had grown up in exile, harbored a deep resentment towards the Hutu regime and longed to return to their homeland. Over time, they formed armed groups, most notably the Rwandan Patriotic Front, RPF. which vowed to overthrow the Rwandan government and secure the right of return for Tutsi refugees. The stage was set for a confrontation that would have catastrophic consequences for Rwanda. Section 4, The Rise of the RPF and the Path to War. The Rwandan Patriotic Front, formed in 1987 by Tutsi refugees in Uganda, emerged as a formidable force in Rwandan politics. Led by figures like Paul Kagame, the RPF was determined to challenge the Hutu-dominated government and secure the right of return for Tutsi refugees who had been living in exile for decades. In 1990, the RPF launched a surprise attack on Rwanda from its base in Uganda, igniting a civil war that would last for nearly 4 years. The Rwandan Civil War was a brutal and bloody conflict, marked by human rights abuses on both sides. The RPF, though initially outnumbered and outgunned, proved to be a disciplined and effective fighting force. The Rwandan government, on the other hand, resorted to increasingly desperate measures, arming civilian militias known as the Interahamwe and Impuzamugambi, and stoking ethnic tensions to maintain its grip on power. Hutu power ideology, which propagated hatred and fear of the Tutsi minority, gained traction, disseminated through radio broadcasts and government propaganda. The international community, preoccupied with other crises and seemingly indifferent to the plight of Rwanda, failed to intervene decisively. Peace talks, initiated by neighboring countries and international organizations, achieved little success. The Arusha Accords, a power-sharing agreement signed in 1993, offered a glimmer of hope, but it was ultimately a fragile peace, destined to be shattered by the forces of hatred and extremism that had been brewing for years. Section 5. The Spark Assassination and the Descent into Hell. On the evening of April 6, 1994, the fragile peace that had held in Rwanda was shattered by an act of unspeakable violence. The plane carrying Rwandan President Juvenal Habyarimana, a Hutu, and Burundian President Cyprien Ntaryamira, also a Hutu, was shot down as it prepared to land in Kigali, Rwanda's capital. All aboard were killed instantly. The assassination of Habyarimana, though the perpetrators remain unidentified to this day, served as the catalyst for the Rwandan genocide. Hutu extremists within the government and military, who had long been preparing for a final confrontation with the Tutsi population, seized upon the incident to implement their genocidal plan. Within hours of the crash, roadblocks were erected across Kigali, and Hutu militias, armed with lists of names and fueled by years of hate-mongering, began rounding up and killing Tutsis and moderate Hutus. Radio stations controlled by Hutu extremists played a chilling role in the genocide, broadcasting messages of hate and inciting ordinary citizens to participate in the slaughter. Tutsis were demonized as cockroaches and a threat to the Hutu nation, their extermination presented as a necessary act of self-defense. The international community, caught off guard by the speed and brutality of the violence, seemed paralyzed by indecision, failing to grasp the full magnitude of the unfolding horror. The killing had begun, and over the next 100 days, Rwanda would be transformed into a vast killing field.